Hey y'all, let's talk about airtight models. So we've been looking at models and somebody asked me a question, what is an airtight model? And so I'm going to show you. This would be a model that is one piece. So I have two pieces here. Even though I've selected it, it's grabbing both pieces at the same time. So what would be airtight? Well, if I go back into that mode right there, and I look at, well, if I just do this as Alt-X, you can see that this model and this model are actually two separate elements of the same model, which is not airtight in this case. So if I grab this, you'll see it selects it separately, and if I grab this, it selects it separately. What we wanted to do is grab both of them. So how do we do that? That's the question that came up. How do you make something airtight? Well, it's really as straightforward as taking every object and making sure they attach physically with the vertices to other objects. So if we wanted to make this airtight, for example, we would want to connect the vertices on this one here to this and here somehow. How? Well, first off, as we've talked about before, you can't have vertices have three directions. So this vertice right here can't go connect to this face down here and this face in here. So we need to get rid of this face. Then we need to say, okay, I need to have a space inside of here that will hold at least all of these edges. I probably should have cut this back a little bit. And in fact, I'll do that anyway. So here, I'm gonna take this, go D, not that, sorry, bad. Take this, say delete, go back to the top view, make me a new cylinder. And we'll do it like this, that, pull off, go to the front. Change this to 0.25. Change these edges to, let's say, 12 by default. I think that's right. Let's do 8. Let's just do 8. Makes our life simple. I think this was raised to 1 on my other one, and then this was moved up. Okay, so right now they're two separate objects. Now if I grab one of them and I attach this one to that one, now they're the same object, but they're still not airtight because I can, airtight refers to scuba masks or spacesuits, meaning that it's made that there's no way you could get inside of it without, because it's sealed, basically. Sealed is another way to think of it. People also say no light seen through it, like it's a curtain and it's completely closed and there's no gap. We're just talking about the gap between them. So okay, I'll come down here. These vertices can't really attach to those vertices there because all of them are closed. They're already airtight, really. So I delete this edge right here, and then I come to this one right here, and I say, click, and say chamfer, and pull it out just a little bit less. There we go. That probably needed it a little bit more. Let me see. That's fine, we can fix it. Okay, so I can do that, and then I turn on this, so there's a hole. So now I have holes on both ends, and I could just, you know, pull this down and weld these pieces together and weld these pieces together like that. But the problem with that is then I'd still have these edges that aren't directly lined up to anything. So in this case, what I do is I go, I'll turn on my snap tool, I'll turn on my cut tool, and I'll go from the center here to there, and the center here to there, and the center here to there, and the center here, oops. Center here to there. Okay. Now I can line them up, but if I lined them up, if you look at it straight on, these would have to pull in and they would be all, you know, not a circle. I still want to keep the same form. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to take this, turn off my sap tool, take this edge, this inner edge here, come to my loop tools, which I believe are still in. Okay, so you have to be in edge mode to do it, I suppose. But it's over here. All right, hold on, there it is. Loops. Let me see if it shows up here. Nope, yeah, you have to be in edge mode. If you're in edge mode, you can come to this right here, and there's a neat little loop tools thing, and I can just grab that whole piece right there and say circle, and it will make it a circle. And you can see now we have the right shape. It's just a little bit too underscaled, and this isn't actually laid out correctly, which I should have done first. So I'll scale it up. I'm going to close the loop tools now. Scale it up. Like this. Pretty much to the edge, like that. And just so I don't get confused, I will keep going a little bit more, just so there'll be a little overlap, maybe there. And then I just want to come back to the verts before I start welding that other piece to it. I'm going to get rid of, because if you look at it, there's 2 verts right here. So I'm just going to collapse them down for the sake of this video, just to get that confusion out of the way. So there's 2. By the way, that's another trick. If you select a box like this and look like there's only 1 vert, but you look over here, it says there's 2 verts. That's, sometimes you'll see that, and that's an easy way to check. So we do that. And then I'll come back to the top, and I'm going to grab the other object. So if I push 5, element, still a separate object, and I move it down just like this, at least to the center point, so I can center it from the top view. And I go to front, and I pull this down. And I'm picking a sphere, I'm sorry, I'm picking a cylinder on a box, because it's probably the more complex of generic objects to do this to, so you understand. Now, I just have to weld all these pieces together. Oops, weld all these pieces together. It looks like I have, ignore back facing, so I don't grab the stuff behind it. I can't grab this piece back here anymore, which is because I'm not seeing the front side of it. So I'm going to grab all these, which also causes another problem, so I'm going to do it this way. So turn it around, I'll just grab really selectively this one. Okay. So I have all of these vertices selected, should be 16 verts. So with 16 verts selected, I could, you know, if I push collapse, it's going to do that. That's not what we want. We just need to weld those edges together. And if you use the weld tool, you'll get the option to say how far apart they can be when you weld them. And as you see, it's gone from 149 to 141, which means 8 vertices are welded. Now, it's a trick in 2019. It doesn't really show you. It shows you something has changed. Like this, see? But it doesn't show you exactly them closed up like it used to, which is fine. Just letting you know. So if I pull back out and I say, okay, there you go. Now, they're all welded. I take one click on this and it verts. It's welded. It's welded. It's welded. It's welded. It's welded, and it's welded, and it's welded, and it's welded. So now if I go to element mode and I click on this object, it won't select that anymore. It'll select everything because it is airtight, meaning that they are all part of the same exact object. Just to be clear though, you could get it to do this if you only had one vertice welded and every other piece wasn't. You could still be not airtight, but it would show you separate elements. The trick is that you want to make sure that these pieces don't have a way to get through. There's no gaps, there's no holes. If I did this, that would not be airtight anymore. Or if I broke these verts here by saying break, it's no longer airtight. Even though it looks like it's airtight, it's not. Why? Because if I click on one of these verts, you'll see it's that edge. I broke it, so every edge is its own control there. So like if you think of this as a diving mask or a spacesuit, if this was a hole, and this would be a hole in the spacesuit, that's where the airtight comes from. You don't want them to be that way. You want them to be all together. Now I can collapse all these like this. Okay, so that's airtight, and that's what it means to have a model that's airtight. Now, obviously, it's more complex the more complex your model is, but just remember that if you want to attach one piece to another piece, you have to make them match the amount of vertices they have. Now, the trick is when we go back and look at loops, to make sure they have loops. And if they don't, then that's something you have to dance with. All right, and that's it.